Well, good morning. Thanks for joining us on this Memorial Day weekend. I'll have more to say about that later. If you're watching, that means you found us here on Fox UP this morning. Our regular spot on TV6 is occupied today by the Monaco Grand Prix. But we'll be back at our usual location next Sunday morning. Today we're going to revisit an earlier interview with a TV6 legend. Last year I sat down and talked with Carl Pellenpää, and I thought it would be interesting to watch that interview again today during our 60th anniversary year. It all starts right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Now here's your host, Don Ryan.
You know, in the middle part of the last century, a TV show came on the air here at TV6, and it continued every Sunday morning until earlier this year. That's over 50 years. And there's a good chance it's the longest running show ever anywhere. Of course, I'm talking about Finland Calling. This morning, a conversation with a very familiar face on TV6 and throughout the Upper Peninsula. The person responsible for keeping that show on the air for all those years, Carl Pellenpää. Carl, welcome back to Sunday Morning on TV6.
It's good to be here, Don.
It's really nice to see you.
This brings back good memories
It
here.
does, you know, it really does. You know, and we want to talk about Finland Calling, but I want to reminisce about some other things as well, and actually get folks to even know some of your early history a little better. You know, there are some similarities in our career. One of them, we were both born in Ishpeming.
Right.
And do you know that there were 6 people that I know of from Ishpeming who had some part to play here on TV6? Can you name some of the others? This is kind of an unfair thing to do.
Roy Peterson, number 1.
Darby 06, of
Darby
course.
06, yeah. Chip Tasson.
Yep. Scott Garso went on to
Scott
become
Garso,
a sportscaster.
yeah.
Carol Anderson.
Yeah, my goodness.
And you know, I think Mo Brown actually.
Mo Brown was here, yeah.
I'm not sure he was
Bunny
an
bread
employee, but
commercials.
he did. Yeah, he did some stuff. So, quite a few people out of Ishpeming who had a connection. The other thing is, you and I both started our broadcasting career at WJPD, which is now WIAN. But
right.
But you were there before me. When did you start?
1948, June of 48. Graduation ceremonies or commencement ceremonies were on Friday. I started on Monday, and Paul Crowley had hired me to. I became a DJ and 17 years of age.
As I understand, your English teacher Ben Renz had some kind of a demonstration going on, and that's how they found you.
His class, we had to go into the next room and read, and he had a microphone there and a speaker in, and I came out of there after reading one day, and there was Paul Crowley, and he said, "Would you like a job in radio?"
There you go.
There it was.
You know, and one difference, I dreamed of being a radio broadcaster when I was a kid. You didn't. You dreamed of being a baseball player.
I wanted to be a baseball player. That was my goal, and
not just a baseball player, but a major league baseball
Major
player.
League. Nothing I wanted to. I didn't want to do anything else except that.
And you actually had a shot at it. Tell us about that.
Well, the Boston Braves had a tryout camp in Negaunee, and I applied, and there was quite a few guys, and must have been 50, 60 kids throwing and running and hitting and so forth, and I had a chance to start the game, and after I pitched, the scout came and said, are your parents here? And my dad happened to be there, and he said, I want to talk to you, come to your house, and signed a contract for a Class D ball club in Virginia, Bluefield, West Virginia.
Okay.
It was a Class D ball club of the Boston Braves, and I was to report to spring training the following March, and my dream was coming up.
Yeah, but it didn't get fulfilled, did it?
No, my wife Doris, she was my best friend, was going to nursing school in Chicago at the time, and I said, I'm going rabbit hunting tomorrow. She said, don't go. Don't go. I went, and I was taken for a rabbit and shot in the head, neck, and shoulders with a shotgun. And that was in October. In December, all of a sudden, I couldn't move my right arm. Some of the pellets had lodged in between the bones of my shoulder, developed bursitis or whatever, and that was it. I went to spring training for 2 weeks, courtesy of the Braves, on a train from Ishpeming to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Spent 2 weeks, couldn't even pick up a baseball, and they gave me the money to get home on a bus.
So the dream was over. But
the dream was over, but I didn't give up. I hooked up a punching bag in my basement, and dum-dum-dum-dum-dum-dum-dum, and I got back so I could still throw. I didn't have a fastball anymore, but I could throw a good curve and a knuckleball, and I went out for a Giants tryout camp in Iron Mountain. Again, I started that game and did well. And the scout came up and said, it's too bad you don't have a fastball. And that was it.
And that was it. And you didn't jump right from there to television. You worked in mining for a while. You were an underground miner.
Well, after I got home in 1950, and I ended up with appendicitis, and sitting there in the hospital, or laying in the hospital, I think, that's it. My dad, my brother, my brother-in-laws, uncles were all at the Cliff Shaft mine. I applied, and I started there in July of 1950.
But once again, something else intervened. You wound up going in the Army.
Well, that was during that stint in the mine.
Right.
In 53, January, went to Uncle Sam's Army and ended up in Korea for a year, which I didn't mind. It was okay. The conflict had ended over there, thank goodness. And then I went back, and then big layoffs in 58. There I was. I went to North Chicago and applied at Abbott Lab for a job. And I walked in, and the lady was at her desk, and a guy was doing some filing in behind her, and I said, "Are you hiring by any chance?" He said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Upper Michigan." He said, "You're hired." His name was Swanson.
Okay.
And he and I became good friends. And I worked there for about 3 months, and Doris was pregnant with our last child, and my mother became ill, and I had to leave. And then I started back in radio again.
Okay. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Back
All
with
right.
more on the Ryan Report after we take this break. We had kind of dropped off there where you were kind of laid off in the mine and went back to work in radio. Those were the days when you were on the highway, wasn't it?
Yeah, the studio was in a mobile home, and the studio faced the highway. And I would say hello in the mornings to the green Chevy going left, and a red Ford going east, and they were tooting the horns in heavenly days. They kept me busy just saying hello to hello. And then I'd get phone calls. And one phone call rings a bell is that she said, the fella in the green Chevy going west took the garbage bag instead of his lunch.
We better jump ahead to TV. You went to work at TV6 in 1961, I believe.
1961.
Your first job was?
First job was working the camera, behind the camera.
Okay.
The process then was learn what's happening behind the camera for at least a month and a half, to maybe even 2 months, which I did. And running camera, Bruce Turner was doing the news at the time. Darby had his kids show at 5 o'clock, and running camera for that. And then I was told, okay, and I was hired to do sports. But instead, they put me doing weather.
Okay.
And, yeah, you've done the
I
weather.
did the weather, yeah, for a long time.
I mean, we're both not meteorologists.
No. There were no graphics, no anything back then.
No, nothing. No. But we made it.
And one of the things you had to do at that time was pour a glass of beer.
Oh, yeah.
Not easy.
Not easy. You had to read the teleprompter and pour, and have a good pour. I mean, with a head on it.
Right.
Well, lots of luck.
Tough work. We better move along. We've Finland Calling came along in 1962, and it really wasn't. It was really the idea of someone outside the station. Isn't that right? Originally, a travel agent.
Travel agency convinced John Borgen, our GM at the time, if there was a Finn show, it would be successful, because The population of the Upper Peninsula back then in the 1960 census was 300,000, 27% first or second generation Finn. So if there was a Finnish program that would induce those Finns and their spouses and family to travel to Finland. And that's how it started. And Eugene Sinervo and I were told, get it started. So
And you did.
March 25, 1962, it went on the air as a half hour.
And you actually had a trip to Finland that first summer.
Yeah,
didn't
first
you?
summer, yes.
So-
That was the first of 34.
34, that's amazing. Now you actually had a little falling out with TV6 about that time, so you left for a short time, didn't you?
Well, we had an assisting general manager, I'll not mention names, and he said, we want you back to sports, back to weather. Blatz Beer is very upset that you're doing Busch Beer commercials instead of their commercials.
Okay.
And I said, well, I'll tell you what, find yourself a weatherman and a sportsman because I'll see you later. And I went back to JPD for a while.
But they called you back. A new general manager
Yeah,
came
3
along.
months later,
Yeah.
Jim
Jim Tomlin.
Tomlin
Right.
was the GM at the time.
And the show really changed over the years, didn't it? Originally, you didn't have guests.
Oh, it was primarily guests.
Okay.
But it was all in Finn.
Okay.
And our Finn, Eugene and my Finn, was not very great. But I've learned over the years to retain some of those words and know what to say and so forth. But guests were primarily, because that was the message. When you have somebody coming in to visit you from Finland, let us know and bring that guest to the show.
And you had some amazing guests.
Wow.
Presidents and ambassadors.
I just had Larry Shabbat call me the other day and he said, do you remember Rainier von Fiant? What a
remember
good
the
Finn
name.
name, isn't it?
Yeah.
He was a guest of mine. I had a Professor Puntila who spoke and everything was going right over my head. I didn't know what he was saying, but we made it.
You started your Finland calling dances,
In 1964.
and you had a pretty interesting episode at the first dance.
Well, the armory, Ishpeming Armory was packed, and right in the middle of the affair, boom, the fellow dropped dead. And I was going to quit.
That would be enough to make you quit.
Well, exactly. My goodness. Like it was my fault that they came and
Right.
Paul Ramseth convinced me that, no, hey, they died with their boots on. So I conceded, had another dance, and a woman dropped dead.
Oh boy.
But knock on wood, that was the last time.
And they became amazingly successful. I recall actually reading in your book that you had one in South Range where there were.
South Range in 1966, I don't have the exact number, but there was way over 800, and that floor was moving.
Right.
And they just kept going up because we quit selling tickets.
Yeah, amazing. We have to take one more break. Back with more with Carl after we take this break. Talking with Carl Pellenpah this morning. Going to run out of time before we run out of memories. One additional about the Finland Calling was the open houses.
Yeah, we had.
Talk about those.
We asked for 4 hours on a Sunday morning from 8 until noon, and I think there were 4 of them, and invited people to come in, and we had coffee and coffee bread for them, and Trenary toast and so forth, and you were part of those back
Right.
then, and shake hands with people, and
Right.
we offered door prizes every once in a while, and it was a great time.
And there were hundreds of people that came through. I just remember it was just overwhelming.
They came all the way from Ashland, Wisconsin, and east of Munising, and
One of the memories I have is well after that, being in one of the supermarkets or something and somebody saying, I saw you on TV this morning. I thought, well, I wasn't on TV this morning. It was you running highlights from the open house shows.
Right on.
And we have to tell the story about the fact that I did guest host one time, even though I don't speak a word of Finnish or understand it.
You were a great host of Finland Calling when I was home with the mumps.
Right,
And we communicated by telephone.
right.
And they had all the music ready to go, but you had to fill in,
Right.
and not in Finn, of course, but in English.
For certain, yeah.
And It was a live show.
I remember the general manager telling me you have to do it. I said, I can't speak a word of Finnish. He said, well, you're all we have.
There you go.
And of course, it was a live show, as you said.
It was
and,
live.
you know, somebody had to be to make it work.
Yep.
You know, there are just so many things I'm not going to get to. You did Upper Michigan today. You had Tom Jones as a guest. That had to be fascinating.
Yes, absolutely. That was unreal to sit all of a sudden and see this gentleman with a great big silver cross around his neck.
Yeah.
And that just blew me right out. That's the one interview that I have to say I blew.
Really?
He just shook me up. He was such a nice guy. So.
You know, it's you know, I kind of worry about getting a show a week here. You had to do one a day, Monday through Friday back in those days.
But that was fun. It was Upper Michigan Today, the people and places of the UPs.
Right. And you did one with Santa Claus, too, as I recall, which kind
yes.
of upset the phone company.
Oh, yes. We had arranged for, I don't remember his name now, but he was Santa Claus, and when he walked in the building, you believed in Santa Claus. So the engineers worked up and so forth and fixed the camera like we're going to the North Pole. And I asked him, would you mind if some kids called and asked and told you, Santa Claus, what they would like? Sure. Poulsen from the Michigan Bell said, don't you ever do that again, because we blew out the bell system.
Yeah. And of course, the other great memory from those days were the March of Dimes telethons.
Oh, that was great.
You were involved in many of those.
And that's when the Packers came, and the Lions even came and had a chance. It was the UP right here in the studio.
Remember the chaos in the studio? I mean, you have rock bands playing, and you're trying to get organized and get ready for what's coming up next. And
you had to be on a stick,
The other, you know, and television was so different back then. Of course, the cameras were black and white.
Give me a couple of bucks. Give me a couple of bucks.
Yeah, Charlie Hanson. Yeah. Yeah, it's just kind of fun to think back on those. You remember some of the other live commercials we had to do?
Oh, yes. I remember I was doing a commercial. Remember Ingrid Bartelli's kitchen set was in the studio?
Yeah.
And I was standing by that refrigerator, and Al Mackey, engineer, was running the cheat sheet. And the cheat sheet broke right during the, and he's only about 5'6" anyhow, and he's pulling, and try not to laugh. Right. And I made it, but Bruce Turner said he did the same thing. He said, that's the worst commercial I ever done.
You know, there are so many memories. As I was saying in the break, you and I could sit here and talk for an hour if we had it, but you know, it's just not that way. You served on the county board. You were chairman of the county board. You were appointed to the State Highway Commission. There were just so many. You know, people are going to remember you for Finland Calling, but there was a lot more to Carl Bowman than that. The other thing I have to say is, you know, in reading your book again, family was always first for you, wasn't it?
Absolutely, no question about it. No question. Doris and Wendy and Carl and Diane, and then the 4 granddaughters and
even
awesome.
Before that, your parents.
Oh, my parents
and uncles
and in-laws.
Yeah.
And the outlaws. It was awesome.
It was great for you to come in and talk to us this morning.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Don.
Okay, maybe we can do it again sometime.
All right.
Okay, thanks a lot, Carl.
You bet.
Back with more on the Ryan Report after we take this break. Well, we all look forward to the Memorial Day weekend and what we hope will be the first long, warm weekend of the summer. Picnics, outdoor events, open house gatherings for high school graduates, trips to camp or the beach are often on the agenda. Unfortunately, with all of that going on, the real reason for the holiday is sometimes forgotten. Memorial Day was originally called Decoration Day and was intended as a day of remembrance for those who died in the service of the United States. Decoration Day was first officially proclaimed on May 5, 1868, following the Civil War, by General John Logan, National Commander of the Grand Army of the Republic. General Logan said, "The 30th of May, 1868, is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion, and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet churchyard in the land." Well, for decades, Memorial Day continued to be observed on May 30th, but in 1968, Congress passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act, which established Memorial Day as the last Monday in May in order to create a 3-day weekend. The change went into effect in 1971, and while there's a lot of competition for people's attention on this weekend, many communities do take time to honor those who sacrificed their lives for their country with ceremonies at cemeteries around the Upper Peninsula. If you can't attend one of those events, at least take some time to remember that in all the wars this country has fought, over 1,200,000 have died while serving their country, and nearly half of those deaths were in the Civil War. This is also a good time to remind you that the Marquette County Veterans Alliance will be hosting the Traveling Vietnam Wall in Marquette next month. It will be at the northeast parking lot of the Superior Dome from June 22nd through the 26th. There are a number of special activities being planned for that event, which will provide UP veterans and families an opportunity to visit the memorial, participate in daily programs, and provide closure to those affected by the war. In addition, this event will bring veterans and veterans organizations together from across the UP to work together for a common purpose, to pay respect to our Vietnam veterans. The weapons of war have changed dramatically since the United States first went into battle to fight for its independence. But one thing has not changed. The men and women who have given their lives in every war while serving their country and their families have made the ultimate sacrifice. They deserve to be remembered and thanked every day, and especially on this Memorial Day weekend. I'll be back in 2 minutes. I hope you enjoyed our visit with Carl Pellenpah this morning. He truly has played a unique role in the history of WLUC-TV. And as we celebrate our 60th anniversary this year, it's fun to relive some memories from the past. We'll have more memories to share as the year goes on. I want to remind you that you can also find us on the internet. Go to uppermichigansource.com and click on the navigation icon, those 3 little bars near the upper left-hand corner of your screen. Scroll down to the Ryan Report tab, and you'll find us. And if you have any thoughts you want to share with us, you can drop an email to dryan@WLUC-TV6.com. And one more important reminder that next week we'll be back at our regular spot on TV6. Please enjoy the rest of what we celebrate as the first long weekend of the summer, but also take time to remember those whose service we honor each Memorial Day. Again, have a good day. Hope to see you again next Sunday morning.